plane crashes are one of the most terrifying and devastating disasters that can happen. They bring fear, uncertainty, and sadly, often heartbreaking loss. But even in the midst of these tragedies, there are stories of survival, heroism, and the strength of the human spirit. In this video, we're diving into 10 unforgettable films that explore the devastating reality of plane crashes, each with its own heart-wrenching tale of survival, sacrifice, and the emotional toll it takes on everyone involved. From real-life miracles to fictional stories that hit way too close to home, these movies will leave you speechless. So grab a seat and get ready, because we're about to take off into some of the most intense emotional journeys on screen. Without any further ado, let's get started. Number 10, Final Destination. Imagine getting a terrifying vision of a plane crash, and then it actually happens. That's exactly what happens to Alex Browning, played by Devon Sawa in Final Destination.
Right, and the left side blows up, and then the whole plane just explodes.
Right before takeoff, Alex has a premonition of the plane exploding midair, and it's brutal. Flames, chaos, screaming passengers. It's pure nightmare fuel.
Alex, could you trade seats with Blake so she and I could sit together? She asked.
Freaking out, he and a few others get kicked off the flight. Moments later, the plane actually blows up. But here's the twist. Just because they escaped doesn't mean they're safe. One by one, the survivors start dying in terrifying, unavoidable accidents.
Every time you see him, then you can just drop fucking dead.
The guilt, paranoia, and sheer helplessness? Absolutely gut-wrenching. Number 9, The Mountain Between Us. Surviving a plane crash is terrifying enough, but being stranded in the freezing wilderness with no rescue in sight? That's next-level brutal. In The Mountain Between Us, Kate Winslet plays photojournalist Alex Martin, and Idris Elba takes on the role of surgeon Ben Bass. The two strangers end up on the same small plane, but when it suddenly crashes in the middle of a snowy mountain range, they're left injured, alone, and completely cut off from the world.
Alex!
The wreckage is eerily silent. The cold is unbearable, and the realization hits hard. No one is coming to save them.
I had to try.
As they fight to survive, their emotional and physical struggles are gut-wrenching. One of the most heartbreaking moments is when Alex, exhausted and freezing, tells Ben to leave her behind. But Ben refuses to give up on her, proving that sometimes survival isn't just about strength, it's about holding on to hope.
We have 7500.
Number 8, 7500. If plane crashes are terrifying, hijackings crank the fear up to a whole new level. It's not just about survival, it's about impossible choices.
Several men attacked our cockpit.
In 7500, Joseph Gordon-Levitt delivers a gripping performance as Tobias Ellis, a co-pilot who suddenly finds himself in the middle of a hijacking.
Let her go, please.
The tension is suffocating from the moment the attackers storm the cockpit. Tobias fights back, but when he's forced to lock the door, leaving the flight attendants and passengers at the mercy of the hijackers, it's absolutely heartbreaking.
The pilot speaking. There's a young woman in the front of the plane, and the hijackers are threatening to kill her.
And just when you think things can't get any heavier, they do. One of the hijackers, a young man named Vedat, pleads for his life. Tobias is faced with an impossible decision, one that'll leave you emotionally wrecked. Now, if you think 7500 is intense, wait until you hear about our next
Ladies
pick.
and gentlemen, your captain. I'd like to wish you a nice day and thank you for your trust.
All right, now put your head down.
Number 7, Fearless. Surviving a plane crash can either break you or make you feel invincible. For Max Klein in Fearless, it's a little bit of both.
Are you okay? Is the baby all right?
Jeff Bridges gives an unforgettable performance as Max, a man who walks away from the wreckage, physically fine but completely unmoored. The crash itself is intense. Max experiences it in a detached, almost surreal way, like he's floating above it all. There are screams, chaos, and then an unsettling silence when everything stops.
Everything is wonderful.
But the real emotional storm comes after. Max becomes fixated on the idea that he can cheat death, throwing himself into risky behavior. One of the most powerful moments is when he comforts a dying child, offering a quiet reassurance that he's not alone. Jeff Bridges captures every ounce of guilt, trauma, and the painful realization that surviving doesn't mean you've escaped the psychological scars.
No!
Number 6, United 93.
Get that?
You got the aircraft.
I have the airplane.
When it comes to real-life tragedies, United 93 stands as one of the most powerful, offering a real-time account of the passengers aboard United Airlines Flight 93 during the 9/11 attacks. This isn't just a movie, it's a look into pure, raw bravery. The hijacking scene is absolutely chilling. Passengers are in a state of panic. Screams echo through the cabin as the hijackers take control, and the tension is unbearable.
Tom, you started to scream.
But then something incredible happens. Todd Beamer, played by David Allen Bash, and several others decide to fight back, knowing it's their only shot at survival. The courage in their faces, mixed with the fear of what's about to come, hits hard. And then, the final moments are almost too much to bear. The sound of the plane crashing, followed by complete silence. Then, the screen fades to black.
Plane headed toward the Capitol.
What the hell is wrong out there?
May we engage, sir?
You're left with nothing but the painful reality of what happened, and the weight of that loss lingers long after. If United 93 is a testament to human courage, the next movie shows just how far the human spirit will go when faced with the unimaginable.
God bless these men.
Number 5, The Gray.
They were... Some of them are...
When your plane crashes in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness, survival becomes more than just finding food or shelter. It's about fighting against nature and deadly predators. In The Gray, Liam Neeson plays John Otway, a sharpshooter who ends up leading a group of oil workers through a nightmare after their plane crashes. The crash itself is chaotic and terrifying. Otway and the others are violently thrown around as the plane breaks apart in midair. When Otway wakes up, the silence around him is unsettling. The wreckage, the dead bodies, it's a sight that'll haunt anyone. One of the most emotional moments happens when Otway sits by a dying passenger, Diaz, played by Frank Grillo. As Diaz takes his last breaths, Otway's words,
"You're gonna die. That's what's happening,"
are blunt yet oddly comforting. It's a raw moment that shows the kind of man Otway's become, hardened by loss and searching for any meaning in this fight for survival. Number 4, Alive. Imagine being stranded in the freezing mountains after a brutal plane crash, with no choice but to do the unthinkable in order to survive. That's exactly what the survivors of the 1972 Andes flight disaster had to face. Alive tells the true story of a Uruguayan rugby team whose plane crashes in the Andes. The crash itself is absolutely brutal. The plane tears apart mid-air, sending passengers flying into the icy mountain wilderness. Nando Parado, played by Ethan Hawke, wakes up to an unimaginable sight. His mother and sister are dead. His grief in that moment is visceral as he holds their lifeless bodies, realizing he's lost everything in an instant. The real emotional gut punch comes when the survivors make the impossible decision to eat the deceased in order to stay alive. The guilt, the desperation, and the moral conflict are so heavy it'll leave you speechless. And when Nando and Roberto Canessa, played by Josh Hamilton, finally set off on their trek to find help, the hope in their eyes is bittersweet, because they know the odds are stacked against them. Number 3, Castaway. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't surviving a crash, it's the isolation that comes after. In Castaway, Tom Hanks plays Chuck Nolan, a FedEx executive who survives a plane crash, only to find himself stranded on a deserted island with no hope of rescue. The crash itself is chaos. Chuck is just a regular guy caught in the middle of a terrifying storm. The plane shakes, screams fill the air, and then everything falls apart as the plane plunges into the ocean. When Chuck finally washes ashore, the silence is deafening and the loneliness hits hard. But it's not just the isolation that breaks you, it's his relationship with Wilson, a volleyball that becomes Chuck's only companion.
The air caught to it!
When Wilson drifts away in the ocean, Chuck's desperate cries cut straight to the heart. Tom Hanks brings such depth to this moment, capturing not just Chuck's loneliness, but the symbolic loss of his last connection to humanity. Number 2, flight. Sometimes heroes are hiding their darkest secrets, and flight dives deep into that truth. Captain Whip Whitaker, played by Denzel Washington, is a highly skilled pilot with a life-threatening flaw. He's an alcoholic. When his plane malfunctions mid-flight, Whip pulls off a miraculous crash landing that saves lives. But as the truth about his drinking problem comes to light, his hero status is called into question.
It's Charlie. I got some good news.
The crash sequence is one of the most intense you'll ever see. The plane plummets toward the ground, passengers screaming as the cabin fills with panic. Flight attendant Caterina Marquez, played by Nadine Velasquez, is violently tossed around the cabin, her pain and fear so palpable, you feel every moment of her helplessness. Then, the emotional peak comes in a courtroom scene, where Whip, overcome with guilt, finally admits his alcoholism.
On the morning of the accident,
I was drunk.
Denzel Washington's raw performance is nothing short of incredible, making you feel the crushing weight of his decisions that cost lives. It's a moment of redemption, but it comes with a devastating cost.
Full power.
And speaking of crash landings that tested the limits of human strength and skill, our number 1 film takes us into the heart of a real-life aviation miracle.
Seatbelts, can I make sure you relax?
Number 1, Sully.
Mayday, Cactus 1549. We've lost both engines.
It's not every day that a movie captures a real-life aviation miracle, and Sully does just that, telling the story of Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger, who heroically landed U.S. Air Airways Flight 1549 on the Hudson River after a bird strike disabled both engines.
Evacuate!
But the film isn't just about the crash. It's about the emotional aftermath as Sully faces an investigation and battles crippling self-doubt.
Today, we begin with our Operation and Human Performance investigation.
The crash sequence is a masterclass in tension. As the plane loses altitude, panic fills the cabin, and passengers scream in terror. Sully, played by Tom Hanks, and First Officer Jeff Skiles, portrayed by Aaron Eckhart, are working furiously to stabilize the aircraft. The moment Sully says, "Brace for impact," is chilling.
This is the captain. Brace for impact.
You can feel the weight of 155 lives resting on his shoulders. But the real emotional punch comes later. In a haunting dream sequence, Sully imagines the plane crashing into a New York City skyscraper, killing everyone on board. Tom Hanks' performance brings a quiet devastation to the screen, showing the burden of a man who saved lives, yet can't shake the question, could he have done more? The emotional weight is compounded by the tearful reunions of passengers with their families, a heart-wrenching reminder of just how close they came to losing everything.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you.
And there you have it. 10 heartbreaking movies about plane crashes that show us the raw reality of survival, loss, and the power of human resilience. These films remind us that, in the face of disaster, it's our strength, hope, and the will to keep going that truly matter. Which of these films hit you the hardest? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this list, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and remember, no matter how rough the flight, there's always hope for a safe landing. I'll catch you on the next one.